Welcome, Jaya G, to the Jill Butler Experience. So good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
How
Thank
are
you.
you doing this evening?
I'm well. It felt nice to sit a few minutes in stillness before we began, and it felt nice to drop into that. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to introduce you as many things. A mystic, an astrologer. Oh, lost ya.
A phone juggler.
Phone dropper.
Don't forget that. No juggler, Jill. It was planned.
Juggler. Phone juggler. You are so many things. The one of the most wonderful things about you is your that I know of so far is your devotional living and the way that you dedicate yourself to spirit and to all the higher energy that exists. And I admire you very much for your path and for your love and dedication to all the things that you are giving your energy and time to, and all the time you spend in meditation and yoga and doing the devotional practices. So that's how I want to first introduce you. And then I want you to jump right in and tell me a bit about yourself and whatever you want to say to come on. And then let's get right into your travels that in India.
Sounds good. Um, yeah, well, thank you for those kind words. And yeah, I just pray to be devoted, especially when things get hard, like to really maintain that. That's been kind of a focus lately to be like, all right, when is the devotion not there, not here? And how can I facilitate and activate it more consistently, you know? And as far as the story goes of like the life journey and stuff, it's sometimes a funny kind of contradiction to just be focused on being nobody, like being nothing. Like, all right, I just want to be, like an instrument, like in service, and and then to talk about, the character, you might say, some people say, and the kind of like spiritual um teachers I like and stuff, like the character has lived a rich life, definitely not fitting into the norm in society, and which sometimes feels really good for the character, for the ego, to be like, yeah, I don't want to fit into this world per se. I want to be on, what feels like a deeper, purposeful mission. And sometimes it's just a major challenge, like for a lot of us, maybe some of the people listening, it's like we we envision a better way, and therefore we sacrifice a lot to try to kind of live in alignment with the truth that resonates. And on the one hand, that's very noble and virtuous and empowering to know about ourselves, and on the other hand, it's like, well, it's we get the message maybe from our family and from society, and that's been the case to walk that line, in my life a lot. um yeah, and as you said, spending time in meditation, that's definitely important to me. I find another kind of juxtaposition that I notice is like loving people and connecting with people, and also like loving solitude and finding a lot of value in solitude. So there's the alternation between those two. But um yeah, any other promptings or questions like about that, or
Yeah, I mean, I think like the last couple of months since you've been back, I've noticed you've been talking in your lives um about, just like dropping in and you've been discussing authenticity and just being true to what you are in that moment and losing like attachments and things. And if you want to like go into any of that deeper, sort of like where you're at with that and like, what things that you use and things that help you to stay more in that present moment of now versus that monkey mind.
Yeah. One of my favorite similes, I guess you would say. The mind is like a drunken monkey that was stung by a scorpion. That's, that's one of the just like super monkey mind. It's drunk and it was stung by a scorpion.
Oh
That's it.
wow.
um, yeah, and that brings back to the devotion, that devotion and to kind of instead of the mind being the guru to the rest of the being, to have the heart be the guru and the mind the servant, you know. And for those that don't know, guru is Sanskrit, means dispeller of darkness, is one way to say it, which inherently implies the bringer of light. And most teachers that I really resonate with, they say the Sat Guru, the true dispeller of darkness, the true light is always within. It's always in the heart. And so sometimes that might manifest as different teachers along our path, as puppets, so to speak, in our dreamscape, that really just come from the inner guru, the true Sat Guru. So before we
Oh,
start talking about India
I
and get
love
into
that.
India stuff, yeah, and some of those things, it's like to just put that out there first. It's like it's always like the yeah, listening, but it's not from here, it's from here. To they say the longest journey is from the head to the heart. The longest journey you'll ever take is
Yes.
from the head to the heart. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so potent. You articulated that so well, Jaya, in regards to the guru within, because a lot of people are right now in this time frame and where we're headed are understanding more that inner journey. So I think what you represent as far as things that I've seen about you and your physicality of life is I feel that you are devotional externally, only that then yet to manifest and grow internally. And so it's that symbiotic story of back and forth, and what you are inside is what you are outside. And so I think a lot of the practices and the ideas and the ways that you live and the ways that I hold space for as well is showing that externally, and it does help and facilitate that balance within.
yeah, yeah, definitely. In a way, it's like we are here in the matrix, in Maya, the grand illusion, in Ma's creation, so to speak. Shiva being the absolute, you could say, the space, and then Shakti being everything else. In other words, everything, period, like everything that we could perceive. And so there's nothing, but then at the same time, it's like, yeah, to have simile, so to speak, like you're saying, to remind us that it's all internal and there's no inner and outer. And and that's the play, and like so we need sometimes what might be called like surface level or superficial reminders, to bring us to that which is beyond mind and beneath mind, and um, yeah, without which mind wouldn't exist. It's just the
Exactly.
paradox, and that's why so many of these teachings are essentially so paradoxical, because it is about getting beyond the mind, like the archetype, like the Zen koan, is made to be like, whoa, I can't figure it out. That's the whole point. So then if we start to talk about like deification, like God, like kind of the entity as like a divine, as spirit, it's like mystery. The great mystery is one of my favorite words to describe it, because it's about the question mark. It's not about the period or the exclamation point. It's about the unknown. And I think that in itself brings us to the heart. If we really surrender the intellect, like, oh, I can't figure this out, like what is the source of consciousness, like imagine like scientists, like what is consciousness, that's something that is so beyond like the radar. you know, like of, I mean, just nature itself. It's like, all right, we make a drone, right? But imagine just a housefly, a simple housefly. Like, what would it be like if humans could create this thing, that then reproduces? It's like nature is so beyond, and yet here we are. We're very smart, clothed monkeys, but we presume that we could figure out the the nature of reality. And like, okay, let's start with what is it that's observing the nature of reality? What is our own consciousness? What is my own consciousness? It has to start with the immediacy, I think, and the teachers I love. That I'm in a sense repeating things of ones that I revere so much as wise and holy, that to just live in the spirit of the unknown, is that felt experience of presence of life and of the supreme of God.
Yeah. And it's an amazing journey, the deeper that you go, but yet the more simple you go. So like you said about nature, it's like nature is, it seems like it's so simple, but when you really spend time and you understand the way that it all interacts and how it all interplays with itself, and there's no fighting. It just is. It's just like a perfect balance. And it's amazing, that the way that interplay is. And I think what's happening with the consciousness on the planet is we're evolving to be, we're as a collective consciousness, we're moving from our head to our heart. And once we achieve the heart living, we're more just in flow, and we're not in our minds anymore. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of the journey that we're on right now in this present moment. And I wanted to ask you, how have you been feeling through all the energy, the solar flares, the CMEs, and all the different things that are happening in the external? How are you flowing through that, and what are you going through? How are you feeling with all of it?
Mm, thank you for asking that. What are CMEs?
Those are the coronal ejections from the
Okay,
sun. Hmm.
mass ejections. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So similar to the flares. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know much about that's recently come on my radar, and I do listen to astrology talk sometimes, and it's helpful to be like, oh, okay. You hear people say you might be really tired, you might not be able to sleep, you might sleep a ton. You these symptoms, so to speak. So I do find that to hear these reasonings. But I'm just here in my journal. I wrote down the word simplicity, and I'm kind of like drawing around it, but stop doodling. But I just wanted to make a note of that word, like if you don't mind, before speaking about these other external phenomena. I
Yeah.
just find that so important and so helpful to reflect on that word, and in a way it's like a new word for me to feel as like medicine. It's like a new medicine word in my dream, in my reality. And I'm thankful for that. It started in India, and so I'm grateful for you to bring it up. Um, and in a way, it has to do with like that same thing again. The heart is so simple, love is so simple, and not to be cliche, but to just feel it. Loving what is just aligning with reality, and the mind it's the nature mind, right? It's the purpose of mind to dissect, to discriminate, to allocate, like all the ways it differentiate, analyze, sort, filter, screen. And the heart is like you said, like nature. It's like, okay, what if this organism works better by just coming more and more into the heart, like letting nature move me, capital N nature, letting spirit move me, whatever it is, letting consciousness move itself. Because what is the me? And that brings up, a lot of the sadhana, a lot of the spiritual practice that I'm into has to do with that question mark and that self.
You brought up India. I'd love for
So
you to get
And at
into
the same
that.
time, we live in this reality, right? INDIA route right now. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you're having bad reception over at your spot.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just going in and out a little bit here and there. So we're catching some things and
Oh,
then we're losing some things. Do you normally get
okay.
good reception there?
For the most part, but there's a storm. A storm's a brewing. So we'll see. There's a thunderstorm coming through. So hopefully, it did cross my mind since I haven't had Wi-Fi since I've been back. Oops, at the tiny home here. So, and I'm on a little balance beam with my little device. Um,
Got you. We're holding you, Jaya. Yeah, so before you were breaking up, I asked you about India.
right. And I made a joke if you wanted to talk about CTEs or INDIA, but so the solar flares, I don't know much about them. I'm grateful. I'll just answer that briefly. I don't know much about them. I don't know if it's what I feel, but I've definitely been going through it. I made a recent video about some stuff specific to my health and the body mind, whose body mind, I was going to say mine. And it's not about catching the language because it's not about that, but it's helpful to just remind at the same time language is important and to remind myself like, all right, it's what's happening, because it feels so intensely personal, right? When we're suffering and we're
Mhm.
going through stuff. And that has definitely been some of the story. I've been caught up in some of my own solar flares, within. And so it's nice to know that there's other stuff externally that it's just helpful. It kind of softens. But most of us have a super ego that's very, let's use the Freudian term. We could be very hard on ourselves, and self blame can be big. And I know it can be here. It used to be a major vasana. That means a latent tendency in this personality. So, and I know a lot of us share that. So it's always helpful to have the kind of cosmic forecast, and I do trust that, like you've referenced a few times, we are moving into the new paradigm. We are moving into the new frontiers of consciousness, the emerging culture. I've always resonated with that phrase. And in a way, part of me is like, I've been waiting for forever, man, but it's a gradual thing. And the more I learn and unlearn, in a greater
Mm.
kind of sense, the more I unlearn on my spiritual journey, I the more I unlearn. Wow. Perfect time to be like, I've lost my train of thought. Because in a way, it's like, all right, the words are done in that sequence. So
Yeah, I have been noticing myself definitely having some brain fog, definitely going through some periods of things that I normally know how to do simple lickety split fast. I have to like think about. It's almost like the brain is being completely defragged. And so like
mm,
all of our past, all of our yesterday energy is like leaving our systems, our energetic systems. And so we're having this giant purge, but like you said, it's very systematic. It's not a system. It's not like a on and off light switch where one day you have it and one day you don't. It's gradual because that's the only way that the human body can handle these kind of shifts that we're going through. Because as far as I understand, this is the first time ever in the history of man that we've ever experienced on this planet this kind of awakening while still in the body. Typically, we
mm,
incarnate and then we grow and evolve through each incarnation, but we're actually changing from carbon to a crystalline light body. And we're doing this while we're in the body. And it's going to take a period of time to walk through these spaces. But as we walk through them, it's going to feel for a lot of people, I believe, that they're going to feel like they're going crazy because they're losing their personality. They're losing that part of themselves that's separate to become the oneness, to become that love, like you're talking about, with all. and to become that love with everything that exists, down from the table in front of you to the tree outside to your neighbor to the person walking across the street, feeling that deep love for all those things. You can't be in your head about that. You can't be looking back at, judgment and looking at, duality and looking at the separateness. You just have to be in that flow of your heart that just sees everything the same. And I think you're on a very wonderful path with your non-duality. And so if you have anything you'd like to add to that, I'd love to hear you speak about that.
I get
Because I think,
I get
yeah,
what
I
you did
think,
there, Jill.
huh?
Wonderful. I said I get what you did there. Wonderful.
What did I do?
Oh,
You're cute.
I'm making a joke because wonderful, like the word one, like the number one.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
that's
You're a
that,
pun man, like
that's what
Ron
non-duality
Goodman.
is. That's what non-duality is, that there's only one. So in a way,
Right.
it's like a universal path. It has a name, Advaita, which technically means, which translates from Sanskrit into not to,
Hmm.
non-duality,
Hmm.
non-dualism, right? Which
Hmm.
means not two-ness. So it's another way to
Right.
say there's only one, to be one with the universe. That's what Advaita means. And so in a way, I forgot who it is, but Evan Wetzner, like an old school, like turn of the 20th century anthropologist or some, I forget who it was, that religious studies person coined the term perennial wisdom, like the wisdom that's underneath every tradition. And so I really resonate with that. You'll see symbols of all the religions in my little tiny home here, uh and I like that, the flavor of the different flavors, but the same truth. The paths are many, but the truth is one. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Just remember the chord of one a lyric from Shivananda Ashram. So yeah, the paths are many, and underneath it is the one truth, and that's what Advaita is. So I really resonate with saints that were proponents of that. Many of them are Hindu, most of them,
Hmm.
are Hindu elders. Anandamayi Ma's picture I'm looking at right here, and Sri Ramana Maharshi. And that's where I go in Arunachala, the holy mountain in South India, in Tamil Nadu.
Hmm.
Ramanashram is there. And he left the body in 1950, but in a way, he's like the grandfather of not non-duality, uh, but self-inquiry, Atma Vichar, to use the mind to turn on the mind. So it's known as the path of jnana yoga, the path of wisdom. And so he kind of like, in a way, created, and of course it's funny to say that, but he made it famous and clear to be like, okay, who, who am I? So in a way, it would just go like this formulaically throughout the day. Jaya will be just doing his thing. And hopefully, if he's having a hard time, like the past few days have been, past few weeks, it would be like, okay, you notice a thought? Okay, to whom does this thought arise? To me, because naturally that's the answer, right? When we ask ourselves, to whom does this thought arise? To me. Okay, who am I? And we just do this again and again and again, and it's not like a mantra. That can be helpful. Mantras can be helpful in different ways, but this is different than a mantra. It's like a combination lock or like a key. Somehow trying to. We're not looking for an answer, right? Because on that level, I could be like, all right, I'm a 42-year-old male who is American, who is a substitute teacher slash gardener slash aspiring Buddha, like all these ways we could describe ourselves. And it's like, all right, but what is the real answer, and that brings us back to the space, like what am I really? That's like asking what is consciousness, so in a way it's like going behind the mind, like what is it that's behind all the surface thoughts and all the ways we could describe one can describe oneself. What is that which is witnessing? And so that what he that's excuse me what he points to. And so just to wrap that particular line of thought up, is I was saying many of these saints have like Hindu origins, you could say, if you wanted to give it a religious label, but there's so many stories of the universality, like loving the fakirs, you know, the Muslim sadhus, like the Islamic saints in India and elsewhere, and just the reverence for them and and the namaz, their prayers, you know, and the flavors of Christianity, and it can be anything, and I really appreciate the value. Like I love rainbow so much, like rainbow gatherings and the principle of what
Mhm.
rainbow is, the universal. And so in a way, it's like that same rainbow of all the different religious symbols. It's like I'm not much of an artist, but whenever I doodle, I'm always making Om and Star of David or Solomon's seal, which of course is such an ancient symbol, you know, and it's so similar to the yin yang, you know, my another one I love so much. And you know, the
Mhm.
Star of David, you know, that arrow going up is the masculine, you know, and the chalice, you know, the
Mhm.
arrow going down is the feminine, and just that beautiful interplay. It's just like the yin yang in that sense, and is a very universal symbol associated with Judaism, which is beautiful, and beyond that, it's universal. In the same way, the cross too. It's like they say, you know, being incarnated, like you're saying, awakening while we're on in the body, you know. So in a way, the horizontal plane is like day to day. Okay, I go to work and I come home and then I do this and do that. It's the activity and the relationships and the um, you know, acquisitions and everything of the day to day life. And then there's the vertical axis, you know, which is the inner reality and connection with the spirit. So I like that as like the symbol of the cross. It feels powerful.
Yeah, I never really took the time to think about um how much you are connected to those symbols, because every single time almost that I've been around you, you've been around a bunch of your symbols in one way or another. Because me and you seem to always connect in spaces that are gathering type spaces, and you always have a lot of that stuff around you. So you are definitely a transmitter of ancient symbols. So that's actually one of your seeds that you're planting on the universe. So that's pretty beautiful that I just got to witness that through your dialogue, because I knew that about you, but you just painted it so perfectly for me to actually see it through your communication, through your codes and your sounds and your words.
Cool. Praise, praise the Lord. You know, from Islam, I love this phrase, inshallah. You know, I use this word all the time, and it's just such a beautiful word. And I feel like I just feel to speak that now, you know, for like, hey, you should use this word too. Like whoever wants to, you know, inshallah, if it's God's will be done, you know, inshallah. Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
supposed to do a podcast with Jill soon, inshallah, you know. It's
Mhm.
God's will.
Mhm.
It's the will of Allah, you know, and this word Allah is so powerful to say, you know. Like even though in a relative sense, Islam is 800 years old, it's the newest of the five major world religions. You know, it's the youngest. It's like the baby, but the same mysticism is there. And you think about like ancient Arabia and like how old that land is, you know, in the Middle East, and in some ways like the breadbasket or the that's not the word I'm looking for, but like the cradle of at least agrarian society. It's like it's ancient, and so some of the codes speaking that word from there, and that
Mhm.
word Allah, Allah. It's
Mhm.
just the ALA. It's so like you know, it's such a you could just hear it in the sound. So La ilaha illallah. There's no God but God. In a way, that's a dictum of non-duality. You know, there's no God but God. It's like okay, every freaking thing is God. You know, so it's
It's
not like
true.
this. It's like when people say this shit, you know, and I'm seeing it more and more, and I'm glad that there's some kind of upsurge of Christianity in a way, like if people are connecting with their divinity however they want through that flavor. But if it's connected with this is the way, like I listened to this beautiful guy who's like I just started following him on Instagram. He's this young guy. He was a music teacher, right? And he's sailing solo across the Pacific, right? And
Mhm.
beautiful guy. He's got really sweet energy. So but he's singing this song. He's like here, he's got his little ukulele and he's like, here's a little song I wrote to Neptune, you know. It's like Neptune, watch out for
Mhm.
me, you know, guide steer my sail and all this, you know. And people are like, don't pray to Neptune, like a bunch of Christian people started saying some shit, and I just in my head I was like, I want to write something like, oh, I love Christ too, except my Christ does not exclude Neptune. It does not exclude, the guy sailing, and it doesn't exclude you. That's real. I love Jesus so much. He's every freaking thing, and that's like using bhakti. That's when bhakti, devotion, you know, becomes para bhakti, that which is beyond bhakti. It's like the supreme bhakti is everything is God, you know, even the children dying right now in this moment, even like how radical can we get with it, like where does it end? Like let me be so radical with it. Everything is God, and that's some of the archetypes that come out of Indian symbology, like Kali Ma, the ferocious black goddess of with the garland of skulls and just dripping blood with our red tongue out, It's like that helps us, that kind of symbology helps us like embrace the radical. It's like, oh, why was my son hit by a car and now he's paralyzed for the rest of his life, brain dead, why this, why that? It's part of the experience. It's like Ma is the wild creation, and within that is the duality of pleasure and pain, ugliness and beauty, all these opposites. And it's like, can my God include all of it? Because that's what effing is, it all is that. And so to pray to have that radical devotion. And one other thing about Kali that I like, and this is usually how I talk about her, is like, yeah, because I love Kali so much. I remember my ex-girlfriend being like, I don't know, she's a little bit too much for me. I like Durga on the tiger with the weapon, still feeling like a goddess. And of course, Lakshmi and Saraswati and like Mother Mary and these more feminine kind of archetypes, Kuan Yin, but then Kali Ma, to me, I'm like, no, but that's like, in a way, the OG mama bear, the mother bear that will do anything to protect our children, and of course all the demons, all the heads and the skulls and the fingers like garlanding her and everything are all these aspects of myself that are in forgetfulness, the jealousy, the pride, the contempt, the judgment on the internet or whatever it could be, like all the ways that we see our shadows, at play. um Kali, we could pray to her to destroy those, and to protect us no matter what, no matter how scary of a demon that might be present in my life, in my reality, or in my kind of like subconscious as like some kind of, scary part of something that I dread. It's like, okay, but my ma is scarier and she loves me so much, that, and she's not scary to me, but she's scarier to that than that thing, can be. So anyway, just a little Kali shout out out of nowhere. I didn't expect that. I got her picture somewhere here. I don't know if it's within reach, but I definitely love Kali Ma.
Yeah, that was something also that I wanted to tap into is I have always noticed and revered your love for all the symbols of Ma, and we've talked about it in various conversations when we've connected, and you always have a deep reverence for Ma. And I guess I want to ask you, do you remember when that started and how did you start to cultivate that? Because it's such a
Mm,
beautiful connection that you have. And I've always
mm,
admired that. I don't know if I ever told you that before.
mm. Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate the question. Um, yeah, it's interesting, and in some ways, yeah, this personality has a juxtaposition in many ways, and that's something that sometimes the ego likes about itself. It's like, oh, I'm unique, you can't put me in a box. And at other times, it's like, wow, this makes the life hard, And so I bring that up because, in some ways, I mean, I had, like we all do, had different stuff in childhood, and so there were some ways that contempt for mother on the earthly level was big for me because of some perceived abandonment issues and stuff. Um, and uh, and there's been a lot of karma around relating with the feminine, there's been a lot of beauty and depth and like radical depth like for short-term relationships, but there's also been, yeah, just a lot of there's just been shadow in different ways at play. So yet I've always had this, as you mentioned, this devotion for the feminine, I've always, I feel like since childhood I had this not, neither is, I mean, and even in my teens, I was like, oh, women are smarter than men, because I had a lot of respect for like emotional intelligence. Um, I remember I went to all boy Catholic high school, grew up in the city in Queens, as
Oh,
you know,
wow.
and I went to Archbishop Malloy, the all boy Catholic high school. And I'm glad I did for a few different reasons in hindsight. At the time I was like, I was like, Mom, you've registered me for Malloy. I wanted to go to St. Francis Prep, co-ed. And in my neighborhood, it's, the public schools are really tough,
Mm.
like tragic things happening like once or twice a year and stuff. So it's much more common in a big city to go to a Catholic school or something. But what was I saying? I went to Malloy, and do you remember what I was saying? My
We were
mom,
talking about Ma, and then
yeah,
you got mentioning about going to the Catholic schools, and there was no girls there. So maybe that tied into that.
yeah. It was a little more different than that. Oh, I remember. Yeah, I had a religion teacher who was really cool in some ways. He like it was not really like religion, like learn about Christianity. It was just think about cool shit in a way. And I remember we had this book, Brain Sex, it was kind of popular in the 90s. And we took this test, and I was super proud that I scored like very even with the masculine and feminine. Like, for example, one thing that I remember is like before caller ID everywhere, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
like, hello. And like the female brain, and the more feminine archetype can very easily recognize the gender. I mean, the identity, who's calling, right? Just by the voice.
Hmm.
There's like this auditory intelligence that's way sharper, and so that's like one thing, an example of that. And then there's the directions, men are a lot more like, all right, just go down to Plain Street, take a right for 2 blocks, take a left on Buffalo, whatever, and women are like a lot more likely to be like, all right, when you see the Burger King, to use like symbols and not, and, instead of just the facts of what's the street name, So anyway, I appreciated that. And at the time I remember thinking like, oh yeah, because I value emotional intelligence and probably because of some of the environmental situations I grew up in, um, there was a part of me that, yeah, like was like held the feminine higher than the masculine. But I didn't realize how much masculine I had suppressed in myself. And, and I still, like I said, I had pride about being both. So I had a lot of guy friends, and then I was just friends with girls, but there was, but, a lot of it, like all along, there's been this void of like filling it with like love, romantic love, because probably a lot of, and we all have that to a certain degree. Um, but it felt exacerbated for those of us that have specific kind of abandonment kind of like signatures, imprints.
Hmm.
It could be exaggerated. So there's been that, but I'm grateful that the feminine, as far as like an aspect of divinity, has been an anchor in that, a source of nourishment. And yeah, yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I've always admired that about you, and noticed that quality in you. Another thing that just came up for me that I kind of forgot about, and all of a sudden I don't know where how it just popped in, but you're also a bit of a rapper and a beatboxer and a singer too. I remember I think it was a year or two ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, maybe it was around right around before COVID or after COVID. I can't remember when, but you posted a video of you rapping to your class. You were like doing a little song to them. And it was so cool. And I posted it on my meditation group page. And I love that. How do you get your inspiration to just freestyle it like that? And I've seen you freestyle in other places too. I love your freestyling.
Thank you. Yeah, feels good. I haven't done it much in a while. Um, and so the first thing that said, what's the inspiration, is like some dope ass beats, if the music is tight, that's, but sometimes like with that class, oh no, there was a beat. I had the kids like pull up a YouTube, like hip hop instrumental, and to use that while I was rapping.
Oh,
Yeah, I did that a bunch in the middle school that year, a couple years ago. Um, but yeah, I would like to create more just in general. stand-up comedy is something that I just stepped into like last year, and I did some stand-up at the open mic here. And yeah, you didn't see those
I don't
videos.
think I
Yeah.
got to
And
that. I don't think I got to any of those. Darn it, I missed it. See, that's the thing. You're so prolific and you're so well-rounded and you have so many different phases, which we all do. We all have many, many, many different facets to ourselves. But that's fantastic. And I could totally see you doing that. Like I'd love to see you do a comedy sketch. I think that would be
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, it's on my Insta. So I'll send you one. But I mean,
Yeah.
I felt good doing it. I don't know how good they are, but I felt pretty good about it. And yeah, I've it's just been coming to mind lately, because there is a part of me that wants to kind of, how do I express more? How do I share more? But then there's always this, Jill, it's like major thing for me of like step out more. But then it's like, yeah, but I have more work to do. It's like I want to make sure I'm really humble. I don't want the ego to get seduced into like, and that's my, you can see that in my dance with social media. I'll be on it, and I'll be on it kind of like strongly, especially if I'm feeling good and I'm making videos, and then I'm like kind of checking like, oh, comments, oh, responding back. And then there's periods where I'm totally off it. Like I just came back on actually. I only posted the two lives, I think, since I've been back. You mentioned
Hmm.
like and I just had 3 months off social media. Like I posted my first month in India, my first 6 weeks. I posted a bunch of pictures and stuff and a couple videos, but then I took a break and I go back and forth because I'm like, yeah, and that's the same thing kind of with the solitude versus being gregarious and in the world, extroverted. So it's interesting dance. But then again, whose dance is it? I remind this of myself now as I'm about to say, like, I feel that kind of, you know, um, dichotomy coming up with like, it's in my face. It feels like, all right, the path of the monkhood or the path of the householder, is like, it's always kind of been there for Jaya, but it feels like it's coming to a head. But again, a head to who? It's always a mystery. If I'm in the question mark, there's no such thing as coming. If it comes to a head, it comes to a head. But can't necessarily, like, we could see patterns, but we can't predict. And to just be in the mystery is in a way just coming from the mind to the heart. So Jai's been going to start speaking in third person. It's weird sometimes, but it helps to kind of disconnect from this character. Like in a way just speaking from the witness perspective rather than the embodiment, the body mind organism um that is known as Jaya. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what Jaya means. Victory or hail or praise, it's my favorite word for it. So
Do,
to try to remind the meaning of the name feels good.
do you think that I think for, you know, the story and the path that I've been on as of recently is I've been going a lot more by my my feeling body, which I would relate more to my heart of what I want to do and how I want to do it. Where is in the past there would always be an agenda, a plan, and I would feel this sense of obligation to do this, that, and the other, and I don't feel that anymore. I feel very guided to listen to my body and listen to what I feel in that moment. So like if I'm not like, even if I have a podcast scheduled, which I don't try to do it often, but if I feel suddenly like it's not going to work that day, then, I let someone know late that like we have to reschedule. And I don't feel any sort of way about it because I feel like everything we have to do what we're feeling, and it's constantly in flux. And I can totally relate to what you said about the solitude and the sort of outward being more social and being more sharing, because I went through a period for 2 or 3 weeks where I didn't do any lives, and I skipped a couple weeks on podcasts, and I just felt like there's an overabundance of sharing, and I want to step out of that arena. Like I don't want to create any more distraction or energy in the field. Like I want to pull my energy back. And when I'm guided once again to step into that arena to share something that might be
Yeah.
of value, then I go
Yeah.
out and do it. But I don't feel it's not like there's no sort of system or regularity to it anymore. It's strictly by what that day and how things are feeling and how I'm feeling. One day I might be exhausted. One day I might have a total extra amount of energy, depending on what I'm feeling in, the collective energy, because we're all obviously affecting each other. And so I go back and forth, but I've been a lot more inward. And I notice people kind of get nervous about me because I don't reach out, or I don't talk, or I don't, communicate, and people see me as very extroverted. And so it's been a little bit of a process getting people adjusted to I'm changing and evolving, just like the planet and everything else is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can really relate to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I wrote down the word feeling body, that phrase. And that's, and speaking of like some of the wisdom, the transmission, the power, the medicine of the feminine. It's like, yeah, listen to the feelings, listen to the body. And as channels that form, that brings life into the form, it makes sense that the embodiment comes more natural to the feminine, whereas the masculine can be a little bit more kind of up here, like laser focused, and kind of like an ambition can come from that, and a detachment from nature can come from that, as we've seen from the patriarchal, or whatever you call it, like the destruction and distraction that from our bodies and from the mother nature. And um, so yeah, I just wrote down that phrase, feeling body. And I thought of the word cycles too. Yeah, like you're talking about cycles, like it's organic, it's natural to be in cycles of, okay, I'm feeling more out, I'm feeling more in, you know, and
And listening to
feeling more
it, right?
quiet, I'm feeling more
Instead of resisting it,
right.
or trying to control it, it's like a letting go of control. It's like more of an acceptance to what is right there in front of you, rather than going into the future, going into the past. It's just an acceptance of whatever's right there. And
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but I watched a YouTube video the other day, and he was talking about the more that we are in our balanced state of, and I guess you would call it your heart space. We're just using all these words and boxes to describe things that we're trying to understand. So he was saying that the more that we just travel through peaks and valleys, whereas we don't get attached to them, is more of where we want to be, where we can be in our spirit bodies, doing our spirit work, is being in a place that is more of a witness to all of those things versus an attached to it. So just viewing the peaks the same as the valleys, not getting, really tied up in those high places of feeling this great thing, not getting pulled and attached to that, and also not getting pulled and attached to those depressive, heavy, frustrating, sad, angry states either, but just that kind of neutral place of witnessing all of it.
Yeah. I think of this beautiful, um, thank you for saying all that. And yeah, it just reminds me of like one of my favorite phrases from India and from the spiritual teachings. And for a very good reason, like one of the most popular, as you get deeper into the essence of spirituality, of non-duality, of awakening, you know it's viveka and vairagya. They both happen to be V words in Sanskrit. And viveka means discrimination, to allow the mind to discriminate from, because it's already doing that anyway, as we talked about, right? But what are we
Mm-hmm.
discriminating? We're not discriminating from the unreal, the unreal, the unreal, the unreal. Discriminate the unreal from the real, the capital R, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Discrimination, like, okay, is this my truth, or is this my heart, or is this my feeling body, or am I surrendered to being guided by the true voice that it comes from silence, not the voice of should, shouldn't, conditioning, commercials, and
Yeah.
yeah, so it's Viveka, discriminating the unreal, the real from the unreal, and vairagya. And that's what you're talking about, vairagya, which means dispassion or detachment. And in a way, these are two ingredients, to be like, okay, is it real with a capital R? Because if not, then I'm detached from that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like to be in that practice of vairagya, can I have dispassion, towards the passions of the world? Like, for example, one of the biggest ones, sexuality, like, all right, do I want to go chase out, I'm thinking to myself in my 20s or in my late teens, oh my goddess, like, all right, we're gonna go to the club, and it's so much like looking for, like trying to find somebody, and there's the romantic ideations, but there's just like the primal like lust too of like, oh, like groups of sexy women, I'm with my male friends, and it's like the hookup culture and everything like that, which is so rampant in a lot of ways. But there's some shifting around it, I think, too. So to have that vairagya, that dispassion from like, okay, is this real or is it unreal? If it's real, it'll come to me, and if it's meant to be, and if it happens organically, then fine. But it's like, um, yeah, Viveka and vairagya, and of course for a renunciate, for a sadhu, for a fakir, for a monk-like person, a lot of times we do, um, yeah, don't want to say the word try, but we do notice like how big of a distraction it could be, the pursuit of the other, the romantic pursuit, the sexual pursuit, how huge sex is. So to have that just as an example, it could be food, like, all right, am I having dispassion from having a chocolate cake if I'm not going to sleep as good, or having a coffee now and then I'm not going to wake up? And I'm just using examples, of and then not be able to meditate in the morning. It's like, all right, I want to just have this passion for the unreal, so I can be more and more focused on the real. So I can, like you said, practice the devotions symbolically if we need to, the chanting, the different sadhanas, spiritual practices that serve that reminding more and more and more, that remembrance.
Yeah, and we're coming back. I think we're coming back full circle to that India conversation because I think there has to be a lot of stories that you have about when you went there and some of the things that you experienced, and I'm dying to hear about how it feels in that particular energetic ley line of India, which is pretty much a portal in my opinion in a lot of ways. What how did you experience that and what did you feel when you went there? What are some of the things that came up for you and things that you actually did?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I just want to say I'm having a great time. I feel like this is a really good conversation. I'm appreciating
Me
it a
too. Me
lot.
too. Thank you
So I'm
so
gonna,
much, Jaya, for coming on. I'm so excited that
yeah,
you came on and we finally did this. We've been talking about it for a while and just never was
yeah,
able to work out until now. So this is the divine moment.
yeah, for sure. And this is my first podcast. For years I've had it on my radar for different, yeah. And so
Yeah.
I'm grateful to do this, and it just feels nice to. I'm grateful to have had it to look forward to, um, and to remind myself. And I speak this so much when I make videos. It's like, all right, I'm telling this to myself. And it's helpful to, some of us are communicators, and when we communicate, if we're really wanting to live the dharmic way, in alignment with our duty, which is always to awaken, I believe, to the oneness, um, then then that means we are doing it for ourselves as well. We're not presuming that we know and others don't, because that's more of a trap, and that just creates more and more Maya, more illusion, more unrealness. So yeah, India is amazing. The end. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I wrote with Rebecca, I wanted to write Vairagya too, just for fun. So I got this tattoo when I was there this year.
Oh, what's I can't really see it. It looks like an owl almost.
It's the holy
Oh, is that
mountain
a
on.
mountain with a heart and then a sun behind it? A heart, and then there's two symbols. I can't tell what they are. Can you tell me?
It says I, the letter
Oh,
I.
I. Mm.
Yeah, just another way to say I am.
Mm-hmm.
The true name of God, the original name of God.
Mm-hmm.
Because without that consciousness, the presence of I, then there is no concept of creator. But this is an owl. Just
Hmm.
FYI. There's a
Hmm.
difference, Jill. See? The difference.
Way back far away, it looked like an owl face with wings coming out. I'm
No,
not
that's
kidding.
cool. Because when we were talking about Ma, the Ma energy, I almost grabbed her and was like, look, because owl to me is so much Ma medicine, the darkness of night, you know? I love owl. And but yeah, so this mountain is where I spent most of my time. 3.5 months out of the 4.5 months that I was there, we're at this holy mountain, Arunachala in South India. And it's such an amazing place. I have a sticker. I have a picture of Arunachala on the back of my phone as a sticker,
Oh
besides on my
wow.
arm. So it's just to remind myself of the I, you know, in a way, like that's my mantra, you know, in a way. But again, just like the self-inquiry, who am I? It's the same teaching, you know, it's like not really a mantra, it's a more of a key. So it's more about the feeling of it, you know, and we bring the I to the forefront, you know,
Hmm.
like this one song who I sat with this time, beautiful, beautiful teacher who I love so much. And he says, in the universe, Swami said, he speaks in third person. The only teacher I've ever been with that speaks in third person, but it just feels so natural. He's so like childlike, and uh, he says, Swami say only two things in the universe: I thing and mind thing. MINE. You know, I thing and mind thing. It's like, okay, what are some mind things? You know, can you tell me a couple just for fun?
Oh, me? Are you asking me or are you just speaking to me?
Yeah,
You're asking me. Mind thing.
yeah, good question. Yeah,
Hmm, are we talking about things? Are
my
you
podcast, my phone, my
yeah,
body, my
yeah.
thoughts,
Our possessions.
my
Yeah.
ideas,
Hmm.
my and in a way that's every freaking thing, you know, like
Yeah.
what isn't a mind thing? The only thing that is not a mind thing is the I. So that's how I Swami say only two things in the universe: the I thing and mind
Right.
thing.
Right.
That's like the supreme, that's divinity, that's oneness, that's God, that's Christ consciousness, that's the Buddha nature,
Right.
that's la ilaha la. There's no God but God. Isn't that epic? There's only I things and mind things. And that's so, you know, I found that
Yeah,
so
I like
profoundly
that.
simple.
I like
Speaking
that.
simplicity. He's a great master. Few words, but very beautiful, like set, like Indian accent. His English is very sweet and funny. Uh, he's a powerful, powerful Swami. I love him so much. So that's the highlight of my trip. If I told you about the three saints that I sat with, you know, this time there happened to be three. They all happen to be Indian. One of them is a woman. The other two are men, and this one I have this picture right behind where my phone is setting.
Hmm.
So this guy's name
Wow.
is Mauna Swami. He hasn't spoken in like 25 years. Mauna means silence in Sanskrit. And yeah, he's like 5 foot tall. He's super cute, man. He's a chin dread, one dreadlock to the floor that he throws over his shoulder when he gets up to walk. He's got two dreads down to the floor, and he just sits there facing the wall. So you go there and meditate with him, and in a way, he's the embodiment of vairagya, of detachment. I mean, my man, I spoke about him recently in a video. He's the embodiment of zero fucks given. You know, like my man doesn't give a f. Yeah, yeah. When I meditate in his presence, I feel some love. I'm like, he loves me. I know he does. You know, like playfully, I say that to
Oh,
myself because I just feel such sweetness in his presence, and so that's that paradox of what a saint really is, what a sage really is. You know, what the divine Ma really is incarnate. It's like so much love, so much boundless compassion, and yet ZFG. I just thought of that abbreviation. Zero fucks given, you know, like in the sense of like detached, knowing that this is all just the play of the universe. Like you're saying, having less of an agenda, once we really, really, really embody the nectar of that teaching, that, okay, may I have no agenda, may I be guided by thy will, Lone Ma, thy will, God, be done. You know, and then if we really saturate in that, then it's like we become so detached from this reality. But yet, ironically, if we're doing it right, because there could be that dry detachment that's aloof, like on the mind level, people think they have it, but they really don't, because you don't feel that exuding warmth, that universal love, you know, that absolute empathy with the human condition, with creation. So that balance. So that's what I felt with Manaswami and Gangama, the woman from Kerala, who's a brilliant teacher every day having satsang. Satsang means association with truth. It's like when you sit with the guru, with the teacher, and Kola Swami, the guy who I was talking about, I thing and mind thing.
Mhm.
So those are the highlights, and that's all I would say about India in a sense, unless you had specific questions. In a way, it was just about being in the presence. And again, it's not about them; it's about what they embody and what one feels with them. So, as we mature in our self-knowing, on the path, we realize it's not really the true guru is always within, and yet it can be helpful to have these outer, but we don't put on a pedestal in the same way, even though there might be so much pedestal. You'll see me prostrate 100 times, because it helps me feel good. It helps me feel that sense of like, I'm nothing, Lord, thou art everything, you know? Do I really
Right,
think it's the Lord, if I really embody that everything's the Lord, then yeah, this guy sitting facing the wall is the Lord himself, this one is the ma, it's like that's non-duality. Like those people on the internet saying Neptune, what is that? Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior. It's like, okay, what if Jesus Christ is Neptune too? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
This goes
exactly.
back to that, like radical non-duality, you know?
Right, right, right. And that the stillness and from what I've heard, because I obviously have not been to India yet. It's on the top of my list for my travels. But from the
It's
people
not
that
obvious to me,
I know I shouldn't say obvious, but
but
anyways,
I do think I know that you have been there. Yeah, but
yeah,
maybe that's
yeah,
why you said it.
yeah. It's I think the thing about it, that particular region on this planet that I want to honor in conversation is there's so much dedication to devotion and
Mm-hmm,
silence and prayer
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
family and unity that
mm-hmm,
it just, it's not a accident that it's, one of the last places that had the divine spark of the planet. Like, I think now it's more I think it's still there, but it's also in um South America now, and like the rainforest area or whatever. But there's specific spots in the planet that have these portals of energy, and I've always been so attracted, and I definitely believe in another version of me somewhere, maybe many versions of me. I've been there, I've spent time there, I've had lives there, and I understand the sacredness of that energy, and how, like, the way that everybody helps everybody and everybody shares, and there's so much feeling of family amongst everyone. And I just that's such a beautiful thing that I just wanted to see how you connected with all that and how that made you feel, because that's something that
yeah,
I look forward to.
yeah, for sure. Well said. Well said all around. Yeah, this was my eighth time there. And
Wow,
yeah.
times
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, yeah.
know
But it's
that.
my first time in 4 years. So first time since the pandemic, so it felt refreshingly new. Like I was so stoked to land there. Wow. I stayed first at the Jiddu Krishnamurti, Jay Krishnamurti, the kind of
Mhm.
radical philosopher,
I love
you
him.
know, eh,
Yep.
like his book.
Yep, his energy. I know
Yeah.
he's not alive, but I mean, I love
Uh,
I love his teachings.
right. The First and Last Freedom, one of his most popular books. And for me, it's a bit intellectual and it's not as much of um, the highest form of intelligence is observation without evaluation. I love that one, which is like just be the witness.
Hmm.
And of course, the one that a lot of people know in the counterculture, it is, and speaking of like how we began this conversation, how hard it is not to fit into society. It is no measure of intelligence to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
It's
You
true.
know,
It's so
it's like
true.
I don't want to. I don't want to be, yeah. And so those are two of his greatest quotes. But I was there in Chennai at his garden home, where he gave his
Mm,
talks, and it's like the fanciest place in India I've stayed, in a way, just because it's just a big garden compound in the middle of
mm,
Chennai, in Madras, the capital city of Tamil Nadu, and or the biggest city there. And then so before I take the 4 hour bus ride, a handful of days later to Tiruvannamalai, where the holy mountain Arunachala is, I was just so excited to be there. And so I really
mm,
resonate with most of what you said, like in terms
mm,
of like what, first of all, yeah, why I love it there, because God is present everywhere. It's more in your face with the temples and everything, and the funerals with the, even if it's annoying, you said the silence, and I laughed to myself like, yeah, it's noisy as F there too at the same time, because there'll be firecrackers, like even like blockbusters, we used to call them growing up. Boom, like quarter sticks of dynamite. They'll light those off, and then all these crackers. It's just a different culture. So that's why some people just can't stand it. They're like, India is so and flowers and fruits, and you know, uh, and then sometimes just open sewage and a dead animal. It's like it's got everything, but it's real life in that sense. So I think that's what we were, and not to glorify it, and in a way, just to be real too. So much of it, like the whole world, not surprisingly, is becoming so materialistic, so westernized, But the places I go, especially this place, as being my favorite of places of great pilgrimage, are definitely hold there's a giant temple there called Arunachaleshwar Temple. It's to the god Arunachala, is the Shiva, the Lord Shiva. That's what they say. Arunachala is an incarnation of Shiva. He was a pillar of light, an infinite pillar of light, kind of like the right behind planet Earth behind you. By the way, I wanted to ask you this whole day, this whole talk, and I feel a little embarrassed like bringing it up now because maybe I'm just so silly. But are you really literally in space right now? She said pause. No. I was like wondering. I was like, I know she's magical, but WTF, mate? How does she do that?
Oh, that is so cute. Oh, Jaya. I love that. That is so sweet. I love that. No, it's just a background I use. I just really like it. I feel
Grand illusion.
it's kind of universal. It's just universal to me, and I
Speaking
feel
of
like
mother,
it's got the light and the, space, and it just kind of signifies like creation, and I just like it. But you're the only
you're the mother
person.
Maya.
This is like my 23rd podcast, and not one person has ever said
Wow.
a word. Actually, no, that's not true. Linda actually one time made a reference to it because she was talking about something, and she said, that background behind you? And then she started referencing something about the star, the light or something, and she's the only one, but no one's ever. So I that's so cute, Jaya.
You're the mother Maya herself, huh? The mother of grand illusion.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
whole time I was like, how?
All
I was like,
creating illusions in some ways.
the whole
It's
time I was
funny.
like, how do they get the windows of that freaking space shuttle so clean that you can't even tell she's floating, and you're staying so still too? I'm
I
like, they
think
put it
you're
on
messing
pause.
with Jaya, and that's actually the way you always have been with me. So this is the first time in our conversation you're showing your true colors with me, that you always are with me every time we connect. You always give me a good
What, like
teasing one for another.
the the gullible thing? Yeah. Well, I do that with everybody, but yeah, it does happen at work, and how dynamic it works because it's playful and you fall for it
It's cute. It's cute.
every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking about Shiva, the pillar of light, and out of his compassion, he became the mountain Arunachala, and so then there's a giant temple to it, and it's just like, yeah, the Lord is everywhere, and and especially Arunachala because there's it's steeped in the wisdom of Advaita, of non-duality. So while there's people there, Hindu fundamentalists, people that, and there's actually a decent sized Islamic presence there, Muslim presence, as well as Christian. So it's in different parts of the town. But
That's so cool.
yeah, it's a powerful place. And you walk around the mountain, it's 14 kilometers, so like 9 miles plus.
Wow. Okay.
And you walk around with no chappals, no sandals, no sneakers. If you want to be hardcore, which I usually like to do it like that, you go barefoot. So
Wow.
so in the street all the way around this mountain, and now it's getting built up more and more. So there's more cars and more shops, and so it's not the same, but so life goes, but it's still the most sacred place on the planet as far as I am concerned. And the second
Wow.
second place that I spent a lot of time with in India is Rishikesh, the famous place where the Beatles ashram was. It's called the yoga capital of the world, and that's on the banks of the Ganga, the Ganges River, in the foothills of the Himalayas. So one place I love is
Mm,
South India, and then all the way in the north, like the beginning of the north. I mean, the beginning of the Himalayas is Rishikesh. Rishi
mm,
means seer, and
mm,
so the land of seers, and for years sadhus and saints and sannyasis and yogis have gathered there on the banks of the Ganga to do their tapas, their austerities, their
mm.
sadhana. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very guided and connected to Tibet and to the Himalayas. So I definitely want to get there
So,
when I get to India and to feel the
yeah.
energy of that. I'm very connected, just like you have a lot of connection to the Hindu traditions and culture and ideas. I too do have that, but I also have a lot of connections and deep reverence to the all the Buddhist and the Buddhism, and all the stuff related to that. And you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah. I've
love
gone
what
through
they
many.
do.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Sure. Yeah. I've gone through phases of that for sure. Thich Nhat Hanh was definitely someone I held as my teacher in like
That was one
2007.
of the
And
first spiritual books I ever bought on his mindfulness,
yeah,
one of his mindfulness books. I still have it. Yep.
the Miracle of Mindfulness. That was
Yeah.
his first
Yep. I
famous
got
book.
that when I was probably 18 or 20 years old. Really, really young.
Wow. Yeah. Pieces every step. My first spiritual book. It's cool that you bring that up. But I just want to say one other thing. Yeah, the Tibetan vibration is very similar to the Hindu, because
Yeah.
the Mahayana tradition is much more. There's like the bells and whistles and the smoke and mirrors, so to speak, and not in the illusion sense, but in the illusion sense of like all these symbols that aren't the truth, but they're pointers to the truth. So, but you
Right.
look underneath that and you find the radical non-duality, whereas some of the other Buddhist traditions are a little bit more like, like one way to put it is there is a meditator, instead of looking at what is the meditator, who is the meditator,
Mm,
to me, which is like the direct access. As long as we think we are the meditator, no matter how much we meditate, in a way, there's still that illusion of I as the separate one,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
like, I is separate, not I as in the true I. That it's the funny paradox again. But
yeah.
but yeah, the first spiritual book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, Dan Millman. That was, in a way, my first spiritual book. And we could talk more about that next time because I do look forward to another podcast with you for sure.
Oh yeah,
But
for
that's like
sure. We
another
can
story about the,
put some more or something if you'd like. I'd be really down for that if you'd
yeah,
want to do that.
yeah, for sure. Thank you. But that's a little bit more because I'd be excited to talk about that. It's like the genesis of my kind of path. And it was very intense because I'll just say briefly, that book made me want to be so hardcore. So, Jill, when I was like 15, 16, like sophomore, junior year of high school, I was like so hard on myself, about being like the perfect freaking enlightened being. And it
Yeah.
was really, in a sense, backfired, but it's just part of the journey, right? We don't know how it goes and why. But I became so hard on myself, and self-hatred kind of situation was exacerbated by having this super high ideal to uphold to, but still having so much shadow of, just being raised with whatever particular conditioning um, and
Yeah.
circumstance. Like I came from kind of a tough neighborhood, and like I mentioned, childhood stuff was there, and had severe intensity at that time. But I'm still grateful. Yeah, that book inspired me a lot, even if it was a roundabout way, like I said.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of circle back a little bit when we were talking about Buddhism and also Hinduism. I think something that I've always that's been attractive to me in my own story is I think and these two particular, boxes as we would say of understandings do a lot of ceremony, and they do a lot of intentional energy work and intentional thoughts and intentional creations. And I think that that is something that every and all customs, religions, and boxes can learn something from. So for me, just in my development and the paths that I have gone down with both Hinduism and Buddhism, I have learned so much by a lot of the ceremony and the intentional spaces they've held. And I think it's been profound in opening my eyes to more integrity, more truth, more balance, more silence, more understanding of the bigger picture versus the smaller picture. So one of the ways that helps my path is to hold the biggest, grandest, largest picture always in everything that I'm walking through. So therefore, I can see everyone's side and understand everyone's value.
Yeah,
And
it's
those
beautiful.
kind of um, teachings have guided me to a deeper
Yeah,
sense of that.
and an antidote to self-importance in a way, right? An antidote to grandiosity, thinking so much about self, but to be like you're saying, have a bigger picture so we could see all the perspectives as with compassion if we can.
Yeah, like the eagle's eye, the eagle's
Yeah,
perch, the eagle's
yeah,
flight of like being able to be of the ground of the human world, but also being able to travel in the ethers and be able to witness um all that's going on without judgment, just seeing it all, being able to
yeah,
hold it all in its breast and its bosom,
yeah. And I didn't know eagles can fly as high as you are now. Seriously, can you see me from where you are? Like if you look away from the camera, can you? I'm one of those lights, I think, there.
Jaya, what would I do without your humor? I
I said,
swear, you keep the silliness kid around, and that's something that I have a lot of friends that to help me do that, like Mikey Bergman. He's really good at helping me keep the kid around, and you're
Mike,
actually good too at keeping the kid around. I love that about you.
yeah,
It's
we got
sort
to
of
keep,
the jokester, trickster, prankster kid in you.
yeah, rascal.
Rascal. That's a friend of
Yeah,
mine that I had another podcast with was talking about himself being the rascal, and the rascal just keeps to be coming up in the consciousness. So it must be the new definition of something. The silly trickster is the
yeah,
rascal.
sure is. And on that note, and you mentioned the word integrity, and I don't know, I said, no, but the word integrity, and integral. So you're saying the appreciation of Buddhism and Hinduism, and then I felt my kind of universal uh, thing click in, and shamanism, and this transition of Saint Francis of Assisi, right, and Rumi, the great, mystical, and Hafiz, the two great mystical Sufi poets that come to mind right away. You were talking about too, right? So I know what you mean about the flavors of Buddhism and the flavor of what is called Hinduism, but in a way, Hinduism is a name that came from the invading Moguls, the Mongols that invaded India, the Muslims, and Sanata Dharma, the eternal teaching, is like the more accurate word for the religion of India, the original religion of Hindustan of India.
Mhm, mhm.
That's its old name, So I just, because sometimes I used to get really self conscious about Hinduism, like I was like, yeah, I'm into yoga, but then I didn't want to be, even though I loved so many things about it, just as a label, as a religion, because it's like you said a few times today, it's like I don't want boxes, I don't want
No,
the
and
labels,
we're doing
you
the
know.
best we can
But
with the language and the understandings and the words that we have. It's not secluded to these ideas. It's a broader sense, but we're doing the best we can, you know. And they're
we sure are.
and by
We
no
sure are,
means
Joe.
are those two the only influences that I've had. Those just have been two big ones for sure.
Yeah, there are two major flavors for sure. On the state north, the south. My friend Jill and the words coming
Say that
out of
again. You're
my
breaking
mouth.
up, Jaya.
Freestyle a little poetry right now.
Oh
Oh
no,
man.
you're breaking up. You're
Right
breaking
when I
up. Say it
started
again.
freestyling, I don't know if I could repeat it.
All right, maybe move around a little and see if it's better. Okay.
Do a little dance.
All right, there you are. I think you're back now. So you want to
Good.
do a little freestyle before we get off?
Yeah. Whoops. The phone wants to do a little dance. Sorry about that. I plugged it in, so now I'll unplug it again.
Oh, you're cute. Yeah.
Yeah, so I said give thanks for the east, and then I said give thanks for the east, the west, the north, the south, for my friend Jill and I, and the words coming out of our mouth. A little freestyle here to wrap it up. And by wrap, I mean only R at the beginning of that is enough. But we could add a W too to wrap it up because it's all one, enveloped in the one hug, the true one love. Give thanks and praise for these nights and days, even when they're hard. Maybe let down our guard and relax into the God presence, the generating, omnipotent destroyer, God. I thought of a word recently that was abbreviated for those three, but I forget what it was. But still, I'm here giving thanks for these blessings, and I pray for anybody that might be listening to these lessons, not from us, but from us. The lessons that always come every moment. I pray for all of us to remember that there's only ever this moment, only ever this omen. May it be a good omen, no matter what is playing on the surface of this crazy, crazy phenomenon called life. May we all be blessed. Springtime is here, summer is approaching. Seasons always change. Solar flares be flaring. May our hearts be caring more and more and more. So much care that we don't care. You know, whoa, I just came up with that. By
So much
Ragia and
care
love,
that
like we
we
were
don't
talking about.
care.
So much care that we don't care. You know, so much care that we don't care. The new dance.
I like
So
that.
much care that we don't care. Namaste to you. Thank you, Joe. That was awesome. Really fun. And
Yes, thank
felt
you
really
so
good for
much.
me. I was like, yeah, blessings. I had such a busy day, such a big day. I've been up since 4:30 and my first day back at school. I was a teacher at the elementary school today. First day since November. I was back in the public school system and I was like, wow. So my voice was tired. I was like, yeah, doing some outside PE stuff and then some art stuff. But, um, yeah, so and then met up with a landscaping client and a few different things, but super naturally just had such a nice flow with you.
I did too. Thank you so much for taking your time out and sharing your wisdom with everyone. And definitely, we will reconnect to do another one really soon. We'll hold space to do it once a month, and we'll shoot some more ideas, thoughts,
Shoot some more
words,
breezes.
shoot some more
Shoot some more
breathing.
breezes.
All
And yeah,
right.
Jaya Totality, same name on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Anybody that wants to connect in that way. When
Yes.
we happen to be in season to be online, then we'll see y'all.
All right. Bye, friend. I love you.
Love you too. One love. Bye.